Before starting, a favor to ask of you. As the algorithm rewards and favors channels with the means to produce frequent videos, or even daily AI slop videos, please think about supporting smaller channels such as this one, as well as other creatives who enable genuine, fan-made lore and storytelling. Subscribing, liking and commenting the video go a long way in helping to make the video visible, which is essential to the survival of the channel. Thank you in advance, and I hope you enjoy the video. Now to the story. Chariot racing, one of the most violent sports on Varkesh, is also the most beloved by the populace. The chariot usually allows for a driver, as well as a gunner and a smasher, all shielded in the fortified half-carapace at the back of the chariot. Each team is meant to beat the others to the finish line, by sheer speed that is, or by crippling opponents via firearms and bladed weapons. Injuring, killing and maiming being all allowed in the 50 chariots race, with each chariot representing a suburb of the Hive City. Life is cheap on Varkesh, and the brutality of the sport is meant to reflect just that. But wage betting and violence by zealous supporters have been aspects of the sport frowned upon by the Inquisition, as they see these drawing citizens away from the light of the Emperor. The Administratum, however, sees in the sport an increasingly attractive source of tax income, as the wealthy noble houses of Varkesh vie for the prestige of patronizing particularly strong teams. The sport has been, therefore, allowed to prosper in the last decades, under the premise of providing a distraction for the angry mobs as the number of uprisings went down. Uprisings, the Administratum and the Militarum had to put out with significant resources prior. While the sport is bloody, the fan mobs of the competing charioteers are even bloodier, in and outside the hippodrome. Long after the race is finished, they would meet in violent clashes throughout the Hive City. Increasingly deadly, these brawls became a sport of its own, and the rivaling gangs flaunted their own preferred weapons, flags and heraldry, and for some, even a patron deity. The most violent of these mobs was cheering for the chariot team Sigma 88, representing the Southern District B22. The mace was their go-to emblematic weapon, and Gornal Primordial was their patron god. A deity, it is said, has been worshipped before an Imperial ever set foot on Varkesh, millennia ago. The god that whispered in Len's ear all along, or so he fervently claimed since he joined the fan mob a few years ago. But Len's violence started a long time before that. Fight and mischief, this what little boys do, is what his mother used to say every time Len was caught in a fistfight with his classmates and the topic was brought up at dinner time by his father. He would be usually informed early on by the academy headmaster himself. It is not that his mother felt it unnecessary to inform or alarm him, but she was always weary of his reaction, of him blaming her for not properly raising his heir to family titles and estate. But it was until Len reached the age of 11, when the reports from the academy became more frequent, that his father realized the signs of trouble for what they really were. Daily brawls galore, with classmates mainly but sometimes instructors too. Not only were its eruptions frequent, but Len's violence became uncontrollable, as he sometimes managed to break arms and legs of children he fought. His father used all his influence, and certainly a fortune on bribes, to avoid an expulsion from the academy. He could prevent it for a while, but when enough children of other noble houses were harmed, the headmaster could no longer ignore the parental pressure and prolong what all knew was inevitable. His father was furious and embarrassed as Len's expulsion became the talk of all high society of Varkesh. There followed after a series of punishments, surgical enhancements and cranial operations inflicted on Len in the hope of curbing his condition and insubordination. But to no avail. "Why can't I fix you, son?" his father agonizingly told him once, as he was trying to make him aware of his responsibilities as the future head of their house. Len aggressively responded that there was nothing wrong with him, and that he needed the thrill of combat to calm his nerves. Adolescent Len, even unrulier, used to sneak out every night to look for such a thrill. He would come back by breakfast all bruised. He joined several gangs of the lower levels in the Hive City before becoming a member, then a champion of the fan mob of Sigma 88. Known as the Undefeated, he is usually sent to settle territorial conflicts between his mob and a rival one, via single combat with the respective rival champion. Benefiting from the bodily enhancements and improved agility from the previous surgery paid for by his father, he excelled at swinging the mace and broke many opponents' skulls open as swiftly as the duel began. But today, in the Hippodrome, he has more of a ceremonial duty. The final race of the season found a gathering of tens of thousands of spectators from all Varkesh, with representatives of all the noble houses seated in the podium. As always, the fan mob of Sigma 88 has already lit their massive, impressive fire in the tribunes. Just before the start of the race, a group of hooded members shockingly and unprecedentedly brought a beaten, handcuffed rival gang member and tossed him into the pyre. No one knew if this was retribution for a loss, a warning for rivals, or an offering for victory. But as the screams of the burned echoed throughout the Hippodrome, Len started reciting an incantation in an unknown tongue. He stopped mid-sentence as time seemed to freeze for a while, and a deaf silence took over the stadium. As he stopped, the whole audience angrily roared in unity, in osmosis. What followed was the stuff of nightmares as spectators hurled themselves onto spectators. The skull-bashing, throat-slitting, and bone-breaking action that followed took Len by surprise. And where madness seemed to take over the entire audience, he realized he was uniquely immune. As he was attacked by his acolytes, he swung his mace and made short work of their assault. He suddenly remembered that his parents were with all the nobles in the podium on the opposite side of the Hippodrome. He started heading down towards the racetrack, fending off attacks right and left with decapitating mace swings when his racy downward pace allowed him to. As he reached the sands of the arena, he realized that the charioteers had been fighting as well, some fending off other attacking spectators. As he was running to cross the sandy field, he spotted a chariot coming toward him at full speed, but leaping forward, he was able to dodge the carriage. After a few chasing paces behind the chariots, he then shot the rider in the head with his pistol. Having crossed the arena and managing an acrobatic climb to the podium, he quickly realized that the number of attending nobles was drastically thinned down to few survivors, judging by the bodies strewn on the ground. A fire in the luxurious lodge has made it difficult to see and to breathe. As his search began in the chaos of the podium, he spotted his father being strangled by a bulkier opponent a few yards ahead of where he was. Rushing to the fighting men, he savagely maced the strangler, sending gory shards of his skull flying. As soon as his father was able to roll over his attacker, he proceeded to attack Len, hands thrown at his son's throat.
"Father, it is me, Len," he said.
Undeterred, father continued to choke son until the latter punched him unconscious. With his still alive father lying beside him, Len could finally take a breath, and it was at that moment that the realization struck. It can't be. He first thought about the presumption, yet it made sense to all the meaningless carnage around him. The prayers they always dedicated to Gornul before the start of races or their street fights for victory were always impotent, unheard. This time, as they unprecedentedly threw that rival gang member into the pyre, it might have unlocked some sort of curse. Dark magic that engulfed the whole Hippodrome. He thought about praying to the Emperor to reverse it. He was about to drop the thought and start looking for his mother, but decided nonetheless to give it a try, as she was nowhere to be seen in the smog of the podium. As he joined his hands in prayer to the God Emperor, his first words were quickly interrupted by a screech as he was struck from behind. He felt a sharp pain in his neck as he reached for the assailant arms. and swinged his other elbow for a final knock to release himself from the strangle. He turned to find his mother on the ground, nose bleeding. As he was trying to form words, the sharp pain in his neck intensified, and he realized she stabbed him with her dagger. "Mother," he managed to mumble, in the hope for her help. Eyes locked on his, she screeched again, and closed in for a final attack, a war cry hardly distinguishable from her banshee-like scream. "Blood for the blood!" Before finishing, she dropped dead as another noble came swinging his sword out of the fire fog and stabbed her in turn, making short of her attack. His fallen mother was the last Len saw, before closing his eyes forever.
I hope you enjoyed this excerpt from the Chronicles of the Fall of Varkesh, found in the warded vaults of the Grey Knights. If you liked the video, please subscribe and click on the bell button for more content. This will enable us to produce similar videos in the future. Thank you.